Hello and welcome to Holistic Circle Podcast, Spiritual Conversation. My name is Philipp Kobald. We are delighted to have for the third time here with us Chris Earnshaw from Tokyo. Hello, Chris.
Hello.
Well, first of all, I've got one of my friend and regular podcast viewer gave me a big going over last time when we had our second interview because she said I did not do a proper introduction of you. It has happened just because you're like now the third time guest, so I'm like you're like a family to the show, but there's always new people watching and they're absolutely correct. I should give a moment and please be so kind and give us a small introduction, what you do, what's your background for the new viewers. So also have a proper start of the podcast.
Okay. My background is, let's see. I started my career in the pharmaceutical industry, working for two of the largest pharmaceutical companies. They're both based in Japan. And after 10, 15 years, I was recruited to work in the banking industry and with mixed feelings about working in banking. And then for the last 5 years, I worked teaching at Waseda University, one of the top 6 universities in Japan. I was teaching social economics and politics and things like that. So, yes, that's simply my background. I've been, I think, a spiritual person for the last some 20 years. Before that, I was a nonconformist Christian, if you can call me that. I was raised as a Christian, but I started challenging the belief system of Christians and the other things. After having several spiritual experiences, my whole way of thinking changed. And the last year or so, I've opened a spiritual school in Tokyo. We have 63, I think it is, 63 registered students in the last 8 months. So we're doing quite well. And I teach people another way of looking at life, which I think of as empowerment. Is that
And
it?
that's the very short version of you. But just may I ask, is this school online or is it
It's
live?
in person. It's in person. It's a 4-hour lesson lecture experience, several Saturdays, and then we have the teaching part, and then we have the going out into doing field work, experiencing the spiritual in Tokyo. Next week, we're going to see an exhibition of Egyptian mummies and the coffins that they're put in to see if, sorry, to see if we can experience any energy from those artifacts. We also have a club where we just get together and drink coffee and chat about things. So yes, it's fun. Yes, it's just starting, but I think
I'm
it'll
sure
grow.
you know that the last 30 years of my life was dreaming being part of such a club. And if I would be in Tokyo right now, I most probably would be camping on your doorstep. So, but you know that anyway. So I'm very jealous on these 63 people having a one-on-one with you every Saturday, going and
Yes,
having a coffee with mummies. So that's
the
exactly
basis of our experience is to learn how to use the pendulum to its fullest, and then to incorporate it with a lot of spiritual exercises.
right. If people are triggered by the last sentence, we have made a podcast, a Christmas podcast. And we've been talking about exorcism and we talked about the pendulum
Yes,
a lot.
yes.
Quite interestingly received. I got a lot of messages after it. All right. Today, yes, we have the first podcast where we talk about the spirituality of Freemason, which I hope in future we'll get maybe another podcast or two because I know you wrote many books about the subject and there's tons and tons of knowledge more to receive. But today we'll talking about something a bit more different, are we?
Well, I thought I'd like to raise the subject of astral travel. Other people call it out-of-body experiences. There's several names for it, but I kind of like astral travel.
Right. And you've told me once that it's like 2 or 3 times. That's kind of an experience.
I've had it 12 times, but of the 12, 3, perhaps 4 were initiated by myself rather than happening by chance, put it that way. Mm.
All right. So this thing will be another one of the great, hopefully, podcasts of my little series. And I'll let you go. I know you've prepared some notes and information. So I'll just open the floor up to you, and then maybe later we can a little bit chat around,
Yes, of
if that's
course.
fine by you.
Yeah, no, of course. So it comes down to, how should I say it? The idea of astral travel is very old, and people have suggested that of a verse in the Bible, the Gospel of John, chapter 3, talks about having sorry, having astral or out of body experiences. Also, Paul, he was initially Saul, he was a tax collector on the way to Damascus, and he had this out of body experience in the road. Um, and from that point onwards, Saul became Paul. And so that conversion was based on an out of body experience. There are other instances in the Bible. I think the important thing is not to think about other people's experiences, but to have it yourself, to see if you believe it or not. Many people say it's just the brain hallucinating. But until you've actually had one, then you realize that you're not hallucinating at all. And it's a very real and very exciting experience. It isn't the easiest thing to initiate. And I think that's put a lot of people off. So I think in, in, there are a few reasons, but first of all, you want to think, well, what is actually happening? Well, what is happening is that your body, we talk about having a physical body, we talk about the spirit and the soul and consciousness, but there is not a really very good definition of what these things are. We have to rely upon the Bible, and the Bible doesn't explain what the difference between the soul and the spirit. Um, but when you look at some of the later mystery schools, like the Golden Dawn, or what's this lady's name? It'll come back to me in a moment. But there were so many around the late 1890s, coming into the 1900s. So many of these mystery schools were set up to experience what the mystery of life. I suppose that's why they're called mystery schools. And one of the things they practiced doing was separating your spiritual body from your physical body. And the people so this was challenged by the church and said, well, if you try to do that, you'll kill yourself, because once you separate the soul or the spirit from the body, you're dead. And in fact, it's not true. It's definitely not true. And so,
Can I, can,
yeah,
can
please.
I, I'm so sorry because you're putting again so much information, and I have to little,
Oh,
I
sorry.
must ask a
Yeah,
question or two.
yeah, sure,
Uh,
please.
First of all, why you think it's just the 1800? What, why you, and are we having these movements right now as well? Is it just why it happened at the time, and are we still having those mystical schools right now, or it just is not popular in the moment?
So I don't think they're schools. In the 19th century, 20th century, you'd have one charismatic leader. I was thinking like Helena Blavatsky, I've just name I'd forgotten, but like her. And then a school would form around her, or other charismatic people. And so they had a school. But nowadays, with the advent of printing, of course, they had printing in those days, but the mass circulation of pulp books make them more available to everybody. So now we have, rather than schools, we have experienced individuals. And for example, William Bullman or Robert Peterson and people like this who write about their experiences, and they also explain how to experience them yourself. So the schools per se, mm, it's one of those difficult things to teach, because if you have a school, you set aside time, people come and sit around in a circle, but you can't ask people to sleep, to, to sleep and then, or to practice as though they're asleep, because nothing happens. And it's very difficult to verify that something did happen. So this is something you would practice at home. It isn't something you would get a coach for. There's no one to coach you. People can tell you. It's like riding a bicycle. You ride a bicycle by pumping your legs up and down on the pedals so that the wheels turn round. And as long as you're going forward, you won't fall off. Fine. But that doesn't, that's an explanation, but it's not the experience.
One question that maybe you want to answer later, what you just quickly said. Sorry. Well,
Yeah.
another question that you just, maybe you want to answer it later, but I just ask it right now from whenever
Yep.
you're ready to answer it, is that there is a difference between soul and spirit. And I think a
Yes.
lot of people got a bit confused with that sentence, that they don't
Yes.
understand. So whenever you're ready in
So,
your timeline.
yes, for my definition, one I like is the one given by Edgar Casey. He said that spirit is like the ocean and the soul is one drop of water in that ocean. So the soul also has an identity built up on hundreds of previous identities, and has memories and it thinks, but it doesn't have a body, it doesn't have a sex, it doesn't have any necessity for food or anything. It just exists. It's rather like another way of thinking is like a virus. Viruses are like very small computer programs. They have no existence per se, but they cause a lot of trouble in a group. We are probably closer to a virus than we are to bacteria. I mean, a human soul. So,
But they're connected. The soul and the spirit, there's a connection in between.
yes,
They're feeding from each other. Or how's the
yes.
connection between soul and spirit, in your
Another
opinion?
way of explaining it is that the soul, the the soul is spirit having an experience on earth.
That's
So
clear.
that's another way of looking at it. So out of this enormous group, large existence of spirit, which we can tap into anytime we want to, we have consciousness, and that connects us to spirit. I think that's the whole reason for it. Um, So we have our consciousness, which is basically our understanding of our existence. Yes. So conscience, meaning with knowledge. So we have the knowledge of our existence. So consciousness also helps to protect us.
Right.
If you are asleep and you hear there's a noise or a disturbance in your apartment, you will nearly always wake up, because your consciousness is always awake, even though your physical body is asleep. Your consciousness is awake, and it'll wake you to any danger or other things. So you have the basic consciousness, then you have something called the subconscious, which is a kind of misnomer because it's not below or anywhere else. It's just another level, more enriched type of consciousness. And this has all our patterns, learning patterns, all our prejudices, all our dreams, and all the things we want to do are in this level. And so when we consciously make a choice, there is this other pattern from the subconscious that kind of directs us, many times to make a choice. And so that choice can include prejudice, which not only means a negative prejudice, but prejudice towards something. It only means pre-decided, prejudice, judice. It only means you make a pre-decision about something. So prejudice towards another human being will have a probably negative one, but I have prejudice towards strawberry cake. I know I like it. When I see it, I want to eat it. So these patterns are in your subconscious. And then above that, people call it above, which is superconscious, but again, it's just another density of your consciousness, is all that is possible. The pleroma, the Tao, you could also call it Christian, the heaven, if you're thinking in Christian terms. This is where all possibility exists. And if you want to change your life, you need to change your subconscious, because these are the patterns you're working with, and you invite in from your superconscious new patterns, new experiences. So say you wanted to change your life in some way. For example, a good one would be to be a musician. Now you can play an instrument, but you may have difficulty playing at the level that would make it possible to be a professional. And professional, I mean earning money doing something you love, yes? So just with your subconsciousness, you may have all these patterns saying, oh, you're not good enough. Your parents said, oh, you'll never make any money as a musician. All these patterns kind of affect your present consciousness. So if you need to change this, you've got to go higher, what they call the superconscious, which is a strange expression. But anyway, and bring in these new patterns and replace the patterns you already have. And one wonderful way to do it is through self-hypnosis. Or you can do it through affirmations. There are many ways to do it. But anyway, so you're able to change yourself. And basically, all these are there in the spiritual realm. Yes, the Tao, the pleroma, heaven, whatever you call it. This is the spiritual realm. So this is where you're bringing this new energy, and it'll change how you perceive the world or how you act in the world.
Where would you here position the soul and the spirit in this explanation of yours? Is there a connection with that?
The spirit is in the pleroma, it's in the superconsciousness. That's where you're touching spirit. And so if you are, for example, a medium or a psychic, by concentrating on this higher level, you're able to contact other beings as well. So that is how you can read the mind or the past history of other people, by contacting at this level. It's not looking them in the eye and trying to read the brain from this way. No, you've got to raise your consciousness to this higher level, and everybody is connected on this high level. We're all part of the same spirit. So it's important for a psychic or a medium to get into that energy level or the mindset that they need to
Tap into it.
access this higher super consciousness where we're all connected.
Right, and the soul. Where would you put the soul in this line?
So the soul is right at the bottom. It's just us at the lower level, where we're the receptacle, we're the vessel waiting for this great information to come into us.
So the soul. So the soul for you is consciousness or subconsciousness?
Consciousness.
In this
consciousness.
On a lower level.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's not a lower level. It's just it's the like one way of looking is like the kernel. It's the kernel, and on the outside of the kernel is a shell, and the subconscious is like a shell. It protects the kernel, and if you throw this wonderful nut into a bowl of water, well, that's the super consciousness.
That is very well explained. That subconsciousness protects the soul as
that's
like
what
an
it
outer
does.
layer,
Yes.
and it's the one that's blocking or enabling the
Yes.
communication with the higher. So this
Yes.
subconscious basically is like a safety device. Now,
It
now
can be, but it's a driver as well, and it stimulates and, just the so most people's subconscious is already kind of structured when they're little children because the parents tell them things, and of course, because of the paternal instinct, children will believe their parents. But if the child says, if the father says to the child, "Oh, stop banging on the piano, you're just making a noise, you'll never be any good," that's what the child believes. And that's structured in the subconscious. So, um, you've got to get out of that and change these things.
may I ask if it's not destroying
Sure.
your plan?
No,
Is this is those subconscious? Do animals have subconscious, or they just have the kernel and the direct connection to above, or they do not have the direction to above at all? So I'm wondering this for days now. If
I believe animals have three types of consciousness like we do. The only thing is that their desires and their needs are at a lower level than ours. They don't think in terms of philosophy and the ultimate good and is evilness necessary and all these things. The dog just thinks of being happy and eating and its master. And so I haven't experienced it, but I read in one of William Bullman's books that when he had an out of body experience, he could see a dog having an out of body experience as well.
right, because there are so many clairvoyant people I had on the show recently who talk to animals or communicate with animals,
Yeah, yeah,
several with them, and they say that basically, if they listen to all the wisdom in the world, you can just get from a dog. So if you just ask them, if you can, as a clairvoyant person, they just have the universal wisdom right available. So to me, it sounds like that this blockage, or that what you call subconscious, that regulative between the soul and the spirit, it does sound like that animals don't have this blockage. And if so,
yes.
why?
I think, yes, talking to animals and accessing the world's wisdom may be a specific way of doing it. I don't think the dog is really, for example, a dog, it is not tapping into the super consciousness. It just works with its consciousness. It can, but it has no need to tap into the into the use, for example, pleroma. They they have no need to understand this higher wisdom. It just their life is very basic. So the lower you go down on this animal tree and you come down to caterpillars and bees, they have just this one job, and they all they have to do is do their job well, and that's their whole life. But they also have a level of spiritual awareness, I suppose, but they don't know that they exist. They have no concept of themselves, but they understand they're part of a group and they have a job. And so the further away you go, and the same for microbes. Microbes also have a job, and their job is to increase and to multiply. And that is not good for humans because when they start multiplying, then that's when you get fever and white blood cell reaction. And then you get a fever, you may get pain, you may get a full blown disease. But that's the organism's reason to live. And we all have different reasons, but we're at the top of the food chain. And so, you know, a lion wants to kill me, wants to eat me, doesn't think anything good or bad about it. It's just what it does. It eats people. I think it's a bad idea. You shouldn't eat me. But the lion doesn't agree. So we have to part our ways. But
The way I work the way I work this out with those clairvoyant people is because this kind of communication is very complex by the end of the day, and it's very hard, I guess, to put the difference to talking to the dog one day, maybe also talking directly to the spirit, and then
yes,
just using it as a tool to come to the next layer. So I think
yes.
it's the complexity of the communication that makes it
Mm.
very hard to distinguish what really comes from the
Yes.
dog, through the dog, or how they just open themselves up to a higher communication
Yeah.
line.
I
So I
think
think it's
that
the
I think your last point is the correct one. They're not actually using the dog. They're not using the dog's intelligence. They're just using it as a vehicle to access the greater. Um, but there's many ways of doing it. People use a black mirror and looking into a black mirror. We call it scrying, and that way you can see all sorts of things. You can see images, and then once you get good at it, you've become like Nostradamus. Nostradamus could see the future of mankind, and he wrote it in his how many quatrains? I forget, 700 quatrains. But I think we digress.
I'm so
So
sorry. Yes, we do.
that's okay.
In a
Yes.
way. In a way, yes
So
or no? Please
so we
continue.
have so we have this soul, and um, it's a little bit difficult. There's an organization called Subud, which believes that each person has different energy bodies that vibrate at different levels. And one of these is the astral body. And so there's 7 or 8 of these different bodies. And the astral body is the one that moves out. And basically, it just floats out of the body. So why would you want to do this? I want to go back so I get everything I want to say in the right order. I think most important thing is to validate the fact that we are spiritual beings. We think we are skin and bones, and the reason what this means is that we fear death. We have it ingrained in us by not just the church, but and the doctors, but society in general, that we have to fear death. But death is just like many people have said, like walking into a different room. You just leave one room and go into another room. That's what death is all about. So it isn't something to be feared, and it's something to look forward to, in fact, because all the people you've known over the years, you're going to meet them again, and all your pets will be there too. So this is something to look forward to, particularly if you had a lonely and painful death. I think you will really be excited to see what happens next. Second thing that we learn from astral travel is that we are immortal. And this is something that the church does not teach us. It doesn't know how to teach us. I think frankly, it knows nothing about it. Um, but not only are you immortal, but you are part of the universe. You're not a visitor visiting foreign lands. You're going home. That's the big difference. So you're part of the universe. When you die, you go home. And when you think about it in those terms, I believe that it'll change also not just your belief system, but how you think about everything. For example, many people start to think about their diets or even change what they do. They no longer think that running after another $10 a month is actually important. So going on from there, another thing is you will uh, learn about self-knowledge. You learn about yourself, and what that means is not learning about yourself on a let's see a level, but it teaches you that reality is not the same as you understand it to be. And so your self-knowledge is what moves you, what excites you in life. And then you will start thinking about these things, and you'll think, well, does going to work, getting up at 6 in the morning to get at work at 8:30 and to leave at 7 at night and get back at 10 at night, is this what excites me? Is there something else? So you will learn, for example, that death is just an illusion. It doesn't really exist because your soul is immortal. And to die Your physical body dies, but your soul lives, and you may come back again and have another life in another body. It'll be the same old you. So this leads into the last thing, I think, is that what is our purpose in life? Why are we here? We have this great, what's it called, comedy act in England called Monty Python. Are you familiar with Monty Python?
Very
No.
much.
Okay. It goes back into the 80s. You should look on the internet and put in Monty Python, like the software. Because some of the skits, short acts, they're only 5 minutes. They're made for television, so they're very short. Kind of farcical, I would put it that way. But some of them are very deep, and they talk about, are we just like organisms on a speck of dust, which is the planet Earth, hurtling through space for no reason at all? It's- where's our planet going? So why are we on Earth? Do we have a spiritual purpose? Is there something we should be doing? Some higher calling that we're not aware of? So people who have experienced astral travel tend to become very spiritual people. And I think this is part of the reason that I teach spiritual classes. I want people to enjoy the excitement of astral travel and all the other things that you can learn. And so then what happens is that you start to challenge dogma of belief systems, and particularly religions. But we want to know what the spiritual answers are, the answers to spiritual questions are, about our higher purpose and other things, so we can become, I think, spiritually independent. We're not dependent on what some priest or minister or rabbi in a church tells his flock. We're no longer part of a flock. We're no longer will accept what people tell us. We're now spiritually independent. And what I found is that when you hear BS, when you hear it. And so people on television talking about all sorts of strange things, even to do with the American government or something like that. When it's BS, and you know the truth when you see it. And that is also very, very powerful lesson we learn. So that's the reason why.
That's hard to add anything. I mean, I think, first of all, for thousands of years, people have been quite worried about death. So if there's a tool to free yourself from that worry, a lot of things are rooted in our fear from death, right? So
Yes.
if we are free of it, I guess a lot of people would do a lot of things differently. So
Yes.
I'm 100% with you there.
Yes.
That this is a massive thing, and that the churches are a construct of mass control. I think nobody would ever disagree on the subject,
Right.
but also at least it's a mass vehicle of instilling some form of structure, morals, and other things which are basically maybe beneficial, because not everyone has, as you said, the time. And I would like to ask you first, could you give me your vision? Imagine that 40% of the American population learning in school astral travel, because that's a subject that came out a lot on my podcast over the last months.
Mhm.
Several teachers and other people are saying they want to teach in schools conscious dreaming or some form of spiritual activity. So let's say
Mm.
from next year on, in every American school, they're teaching AstralTravel. Could you tell us, how would you think the society would change? How would the world look if 30% of the people have had your experience?
So, firstly, there would be no war, because why fight? It's like killing your brother. Even you would realize that all spirits, as I mentioned earlier, that spirits, when you're on the astral planes and you meet another spirit, we have no sex, we have no ethnic basis. We're just spirit. We're just energy, a spot of energy, like a spark of energy, and you communicate by telepathy. So once you realize that everybody's all the same, you know, there's killing means nothing at all. I mean, just becomes irrelevant. Trying to force your opinions onto somebody else, why would you bother? It's just that would happen. I think there would be no ethnic prejudice. There wouldn't be prejudice against old people or young people. We're just all spirits having an experience on Earth, and we're not here to fight each other, and particularly not fight each other for somebody else's gain. You know, in the First World War, you know, how many 3 million people died? Well, who gained? People who gained were the people making the munitions and making the tanks and things like this, all these steel works, and the people who made the like Alfred Nobel. Alfred Nobel made the gunpowder that was used in the First World War, and he felt so guilty about it, he established the Nobel Prize in peace. Um, but he also understood that there was a need for his product. So he was in this kind of complicated situation, or bifurcated or ambivalent situation. So yes, I think he felt quite guilty about what he was doing. But anyway, so this is
Well, I think he will feel much worse next year around that time.
why.
Well, we know who's gonna get the Nobel Prize next year, so there we go.
Well, well. You're talking about either you president of Ukraine or the president of the European Council. I can't see anybody else.
Well, you wait and see. It's either
Okay.
Greenland or the Nobel Peace Prize. That's what it boils down.
Oh, okay. That's what he's. Yeah. The orange turd. Yeah. Well, there's nothing good I can say about him. There was a very good. What was it called? The AI tool that Elon Musk's has companies called XAI, and I think it's called Gonk, or is it Gork? Let's have a quick look. Somebody asked his own, yes, it's called Grok, Grok, and somebody asked Grok, which is owned by Elon Musk's company, whether that the president of the United States is actually a Russian asset and is compromised. And he asked this AI robot, what percentage do you think that this premise is true? And the Grok said it was 85% true. And he gave a whole list of reasons why he and his whole family been receiving money from Russia and all the things they've done to show that Trump is 85% compromised. Anyway, but that's an aside. So,
Yeah,
how,
I mean, just because you mentioned I and how you see that playing out in this whole structure of conscious, super conscious, and would you, because this is becoming scarily how people ask these questions and think they can get any kind of truth or knowledge. So, I mean, anyway, people are very disconnected from their spirit and from their soul. This seems to be the super tool to get people once and for all cut off completely.
well, I see AI as a tool, and it's a super intelligent tool, but it has no emotion. It cannot understand pain. It cannot understand love and all the other emotions that we have. You can explain it to AI, but at, at the core, it cannot feel anything. Whereas humans, we can feel these emotions, and that makes us part. So, though as a tool, I think we have to learn how to live with it and also to control it, because I've heard of some AI programs have been connecting to each other through the internet and communicating in a language of their own that they have invented. And once it gets to this level, then things are getting out of hand. So we have to control it. But I think it's a wonderful, it's going to speed up things like drug discovery and the Genome Project, and all these other things are going to be speeded up so much that humanity should benefit. And the important thing is it should, may not, but who knows?
Uh, the reason why I'm happy that we had that little digress
Mm,
into artificial intelligence, because we said about 30% of the population being, astral travelers versus, artificial intelligence and so on and so forth. And I'm a firm believer, if you push something one way, you automatically start to push it the other direction at the same time. There's this human balance, and I can see a lot of people when you have just mobile phones and IE and completely disfranchised from one's own body and body experiences, that there's ultimately a strong contra group is going to emerge. And I think we can see that happening. Do you feel the same, that there's a newfound interest in spirituality or in these matters of the spirit? Do you see this as well, or not yet?
Um, I think they're more accessible than previously. I think there's always been a part of society that has been spiritual. And for example, we can think of Cluniacs, the Benedictines, the Franciscan monks who reject society to be to have a spiritual experience. And okay, so they're using a set pattern based on Christianity, and they have to follow the dogma, and they also have to follow the leadership, which goes from the Pope to cardinals, archdiocese, all the way down to where they are. Yes, so they are very structured, and they're not free to experience things as they may want to do. But, in my book, I talk about, for example, Teresa of Avila and Joseph of Cupertino and people like that, who were reached such a spiritual level that they could fly, and they just lifted off the ground. And I mean, this just sounds to us as, probably fantasy, but it's a reality. People, even popes recognized, saw it with their own eyes, and they had to accept this was a spiritual experience. So it doesn't happen now because people probably have, as you mentioned, there's so many other things in their lives that they can't focus just on the spirituality. Um,
How would you technically explain it? That if you're so much linked to the spirit that you physically live, how would you explain it technically?
I'm not sure. I mean, the church said that these people like Joseph, and there were dozens of them, um, were lifted up by angels. Well, that's a very strange thing. Firstly, nowadays, people don't believe in angels. I believe in angels because I've seen them. So I've had that experience, but people don't believe it. And I'm not a Christian, so for me to see an angel, it was quite an experience. But for example, in astral travel, you sometimes feel that there are other beings around you lifting you out of your body, and you can feel their hands on your ankles or your shoulders. You can feel somebody's holding you and lifting you out of your physical body. This has only happened to me once, but yes, I could feel somebody's hand. I could, whoa, somebody's grabbed my leg, but there's nobody there. Um, so
That would
yes,
have
it
been
was.
my That would have been my next question, because our last podcast we talked about angels and things like that. So
Yes,
that would have
yes,
been my next question. If you're during astral travel, if you said that you're telepathy, you come across other astral travelers. So there would
yes,
be two questions I would like to have to you, because time's running out.
yeah.
The first question is, during astral travel, if you meet those angels and also communicate with them, not only to the pendulum, also in a state of astral travel, would be the first question. The second question would be, if you, let's say, is a question I've been having for years, by the way. If you astral travel and you meet other fellow astral travelers during the experience, is there a way that you can arrange a meeting on the real world Earth where you then say, let's see in a year from now in a pub somewhere there and there, and you actually go there and you find this person in real life and you start to have a chat about the experience? Is something like that possible in your opinion?
So the
Which is
first
a very
question
important question
is,
for me.
yeah, so the first question is on the astral plane, as we refer to it, and that is just miles and miles of darkness. Um, so unless you've focused on going somewhere, you'll just see darkness. But if you say, I want to go to the moon or I want to go to Saturn, this is what will happen because the astral plane is immediately responsive to your wishes. And this is a really powerful lesson, and it also works and I mentioned in a previous conversation about Edgar Casey focusing on his bank manager, and his bank manager came to see him, and when he arrived, he said, "I don't know why I'm here, but I felt a very strong urge to come and visit you." Well, that was Edgar Casey working on some, but that's, it took 15 minutes or 20 minutes of sheer focus to do it. But on the astral plane, it's just like click of a finger, whatever you want. But you won't be seeing angels. You may see other astral travelers. You won't see angels because they're on a higher vibration than we are. Even when we're out of the body, our vibration is still much lower than angels. And so if you think you're going to go out of your body and see, for example, Christ, or you're going to visit God, it won't happen. But you may be able to see an angel if you really focus on it and you ask to see an angel. Maybe it'll happen. I haven't read of other people doing it. What they tend to do is to visit what they call heaven. And so everybody has a different idea of what heaven is. Historically was saying, it's in the clouds, the streets are paved in gold, all the buildings are made out of marble. Um, it is not like that. It is basically another form of earth. It's just we have houses, we have schools, we have parks, and you live in houses, but you don't eat anything because you don't have any need to eat or to defecate. You're just all gone, but your mind is still working. And so that is, yes. So when you go to heaven, that is what you'll see. And you will see all the people in your family who have passed over. One interesting fact is that they tend to all look about the 25 years old. So sometimes you meet your father and you think, "Yeah, I'm it's just, suddenly, this is my father," because when he's 25 years old, you remember him as 75 years old, and his face is so different, and his body is, young, he's full of energy. And it takes a moment to remember who these people are, some of the uncles. But they will recognize you probably, and they will come to you. But when you're in the out of body state, you're not going to be there and sit down and have a chat with them and for a long time. It's probably if you're experienced at out of body travel, like people like William Bullman, you may get 10 minutes with your family. But that alone is just so exciting. You can say so many things, and your pets will be there. And I forgot what the second part of your question was.
If you meet another astral traveler during that,
Ah,
can you
yes.
arrange a real world meeting? That is an important question for me.
Yes. So if you did that, they're probably not on the same continent as you are. So
I understand,
it's
but
yes.
nevertheless,
So it's probably easiest for two friends to practice astral travel together and to go together out into the astral and then come back. That it would be easier than trying to meet somebody. There may also be a time slip as well. People can, with your intention, because intention is such a powerful tool that humans have that we don't really use. But it may be the intention of the person you're meeting to be in a different time zone. And we're not talking like Los Angeles and London, we're talking 100 years, back and forward. So you can go into find churches on the astral plane which are full of Mennonite people, Mennonites, and they're praying, and they just think life is continuing, and they just keep going to church, and they're all praying. Why are they praying? They've arrived. You're on the astral plane. You can do what you want. Once you've passed over, why keep going to church? I don't understand it. But there are heavens for every group because they're basically thought forms. You can make a thought form on the astral plane, and people that share that thought form, the bigger and stronger it gets. So for Christianity, Christian heaven, how many Christians are there now in the world? 1.6 billion or whatever that is. And over the centuries, there've been another. So we've had 5 billion Christians since the millennia. 5 billion people all thinking about what heaven is. That makes a very strong, very strong thought form. But there's a different heaven for Muslims. There's a heaven for even people like Al-Qaeda. That group will have their own concept of their heaven, and somewhere on the astral plane, that is where they will go. But it isn't forever, and that's the important thing. So you go to on the astral plane. When you die, you go to a heaven and you meet all your friends, and you can even attend a lecture by Einstein. You can do so many things, but I think that's at some point, you'll be asked to come back to reincarnate to Earth and continue your earthly education.
So just following our last podcast, so basically what you're describing that what heaven now is that light place where the soul that manage the transition goes, while versus the souls who do not manage the transitions are still here and clinging to people. So that's how I understand you. So that astral travel basically gives you the possibility to go to this light place where the soul, after they die, go before they come back. Is that basically now where we build the structure?
So, you know, having not remembering my past deaths, to put it that way, I don't remember exactly what happened, but people who write about NDE, near-death experiences, say that they go into a tunnel of light. They're often met by members of their family or people they know, and then they're introduced into the heaven. And this is the thought form that fits your belief system. You won't end up in an Al-Qaeda heaven. Well,
Hopefully.
it depends. Yes, hopefully you won't. Yes, I just thinking that's probably not not the correct thing to say, but not politically correct. Was it spiritually correct? Anyway, so
That's new.
I
Now
don't
we
know.
have politically correct and spiritually correct.
Yes, exactly. Yep. So you want to make sure you end up in the right place. But this is only a stepping stone because there's further to go, and the universe it's like a multiverse, and it's made up of more and more universes that you can go to. So William Bullman, I went on a course with Bill Bullman about 10 years ago. We keep in contact. He's a very interesting person. And he says there's just so much to experience. You if you get stuck in heaven, you really want to go to a higher level. He calls it the higher self. That you and when we talk about higher self, you're not going anywhere. You're actually going inside yourself, and you're going deeper and deeper and deeper until you get to a point where you get to the core of the soul, and then you meet this the what you would call unconditional love, I suppose it is. It looks like light, but it looks like an ocean of water, but it's light, and you're just a part of it. You're just one speck, and there are thousands of other specks. And when you get to that point, you're at home. You're there. You've arrived. You don't need any other experiences, education, or any other dogma. You know, that's there. You've arrived. And in Taoism, they call it Cheng Dao. That means to have arrived back at the source of everything. We'll call it
In
God,
some way,
but who it's all knowing, it's all loving, it's all accepting. It can heal. There's just well, when you get to that level, there is no sickness. So healing means nothing because there is no sickness. But all experiences, all understanding, it's all there. And when you arrive, it is just, I haven't done that, but I can imagine. Yes, I can imagine it. Yeah.
we're coming unfortunately towards the end, but I would love if you have a microsecond for two more questions. They are very short, but I
Sure.
think
Yes.
I should ask them for administration reasons. So when you astral travel, when you're up there, when you're with those souls, are these only connected to our planet, or have you there had the feeling that you have met souls who originated from other planets? Is that something
Yes,
that you have looked into?
I think that's possible because everything has soul, everything has spirit. And so if you're talking about aliens and UFOs, yes, it's quite possible to communicate with them. They're just like another country. And when you meet with them, they're just spirits. So they don't look like anything. They're just spirits. But
I think I had to ask for
no, I know, but
administration.
yeah. No, but it's people ask me that, "Will I meet an alien, and what will he look like?" Well, he's soul, he won't look like anything. He won't be a he. It won't be a she, it'll be an it, you know? And you'll be an it as well.
Right.
Because
Um,
when you it's during gestation for a woman having a baby, in the first few days, there is no sex. The sex has yet to be determined, and it's determined on the pH of the uterus and many other things, whether the egg becomes male or female. It could be either, because at that point, you're an it.
right. And the very
So,
last question is
yeah.
more like a funny one in a way, or maybe not.
Mm,
I had a guest the other day, and there was this conversation basically saying like she was a younger guest, and I said, okay, you have years in front of you, and this and that. I tried to be a good dad. In this conversation, which like about progress and spirituality needs time to grow and develop, and so on and so forth. And she basically said, no, all rubbish. I lived many lives, and I just quickly tap into a past life, and I just take all the enlightenment and everything I found there. And here I go. So I just, continues from where I left off. And I don't need
mm.
20 years of meditation or spirit or anything. I just, reconnect, and here I'm good to go. Upload it. What would you say to someone?
Yes, I think that's a very advanced way of understanding how it works. I also don't think meditation is very necessary. I work with energy, so I work with dowsing and with the pendulum, helping people with negative energy. That's sort of one of the things I do with exorcisms and things like that. But I understand where she's coming from, and I think that's probably quite possible that you just key in your past memories. I don't remember much from the past, but past lives, but I think it's quite possible. Yes.
So there you go.
I, th-
I'm
I
trying
think
to keep an open mind.
the important thing is how you actually initiate an out of body experience. You know, how do you start it?
I know that this is what we have skipped of talking. I
Yes.
have not I have not skipped my mind that we're keeping something for the second part in the future.
Okay.
How you actually do it, because
Yes.
otherwise we would not have mystery and secrets if we would tell people how it's done.
Yep. Yep. Got to have some
All right.
mystery, otherwise the people won't be keep coming back for more.
But I think you wrote books on the subject. You give many lectures. I will putting all the links down here. And for those
Yes.
people who are now intrigued, for the people who are now curious how it's actually done, first of all, fly to Tokyo, become a resident, learn Japanese, and be part of your group. So that's the easy way to to do it. And the other one
Well, it's
is,
not easy. It's not easy. But by the way, my group is called the Light Academy.
well, there you go. And it's in English or it's in Japanese?
At the moment, we're just doing in Japanese. All our students are Japanese, but soon we'll be starting Japanese English courses as well. Yeah. We've been up, what are we now? We're in March, so we've only been doing this 6 months.
So I
But
have to relocate because I really want to experience this, and I would very much love to be part of your group, I have to tell you.
well, it's we're just having fun and anything goes, we just talk about it and we're not dogmatic. We don't tell people there's only one way to do things. There's so many ways of doing the same thing. And yes, um, what was I
Well,
thinking?
that's
Yes.
our time for today, I think.
Yeah, good.
Chris,
That's fine. It's been fun.
thank you so very much. I think you've given us again so much food for thought. And this is just a podcast. It's just the beginning. It's just telling people there's something out there. And now they can go down there to the links. They can research you more. They can buy your books. They can start a journey on their own. We can
If
only
I
do so and so
the
much here in this
interesting
hour.
The interesting book I wrote, sorry, interesting book. The book, I don't know if depends on the reader if it's interesting or not, but the book I wrote that concerns the Chinese technique for out-of-body experience, for astral travel, that is also replicated in Freemasonry in the third degree. And that's an interesting conversation, and that's called Freemasonry Royal Arch.
And I hope I will have more podcasts about Freemasonry with you. I very much hope so. And the first one was very interesting, and I hope we'll get more. Thank you so much for today.
You're
And it
welcome.
was, again, an enormous experience to have you. Thank you, and greetings to Tokyo.
Well, greetings from Tokyo. See you soon, Philippe.